Our inner individual work is what possibly can make a change in this world, you know. Politics is a very interesting path, but I think it's just Band-Aid. There's no political system will work unless the human nature perfects itself. Nothing is above anything else, and therefore if you make anything important, you're already creating duality. 99% of the regrets are what you didn't do, never what you did. So go ahead and screw up as much as you can, but do live. Screw up, we're all gonna make mistakes. Just be a kind human being. Take the next breath, enjoy your next meal, be present in what you do, and that is the magic. 99% of humanity doesn't show up for their life. And so I had my rock life and my spiritual life running parallel but never touching each other until I moved, I must have been 19, 20, I moved to the States. I had to escape Uruguay. It was a military dictatorship. A lot of my friends died or disappeared or tortured, and it was dangerous to be there. And in the States I heard...
Ponekad pomislim kako sam Kosmičke Putnike krenuo da kreiram, kako bih u jednom trenutku snimio epizodu koja bi sadržala srž celokupnog puta, i epizoda koja sledi je upravo jedna od takvih epizoda. Slobodno bih mogao da kažem da je moj današnji gost, Džozef Pepe Danca, jedan od onih vrlo retkih i dragocenih istinskih životnih učitelja. Sa svojih 70 godina iskustveno je doživeo toliko toga da je maltene neverovatno poverovati da je u pitanju samo jedan život. Kao ceremonijalni bubnjar i virtuozni muzičar koji svira preko 15 instrumenata, imao je priliku da planetu proputuje uzduž i popreko više puta. Živeo je u zajednici zasnovanoj na učenjima i principima Gurđijeva, učio od šamana iz Amazona, majstora iz zabačenih lamaserija na Tibetu, kao i mnogih duhovnih učitelja iz Japana, Šrilanke i Indije. Nekoliko puta je doslovno bio na ivici smrti, što mu je znatno uticalo na percepciju života, i o cijelom tom neverovatnom životnom putu, kao i dubokim uvidima koji su ga pratili, razgovaramo u današnjoj epizodi. Pre nego što nastavimo, želeo bih da se zahvalim kompaniji Tenge koja je podržala kreiranje ove epizode, kao i svima vama koji ste ovdje trenutno sa mnom. Ukoliko uživaš u ovome što kreiramo u Kosmičkim Putnicima, za tebe potpuno besplatan i najjednostavniji način da mene direktno podržiš da nastavim da ovo kreiram jeste da zapratiš ovaj kanal i da lajkuješ ovu epizodu. I hvala ti puno na tome. Uživaj. Pepe Danza.
Hermano.
Maestro. Welcome to Cosmic Travelers
Muchas
again.
gracias. Pleasure. True pleasure to be here.
Pepe, I'm not gonna lie to you. I found you to be one of the most authentic souls that I know.
Gracias.
You were kind enough to actually be one of the first guests in my podcast.
I remember.
Yeah, and we did that episode probably about like 3 years ago or something like that.
At least.
Yeah, and what I realized was that the process of making that episode was kind of like a beginning of a wonderful friendship between the two of us, which I so deeply and sincerely cherish.
Much appreciated.
Yeah. But however, the intention of creating today's episode was to dive a bit deeper into the fascinating journey of your life, and also to explore different stages of spiritual path that you experienced in your life, which I found to be really, really deep and meaningful. But for someone who isn't familiar with your work whatsoever and who perhaps sees you for the first time, I would like to ask you, how would you best describe what is it that you do and why do you do it?
I call it the Pepe soup. Because the influences are so wide and varied. So we can talk about that. Why I do it is because I am me. You know, I've never really had a choice in what to do in my life. The very first time I heard Mozart, for instance, I was maybe 7 or 8 years old in school, and I just wept. I just kept crying, and I didn't know why, and what was happening to me. And the teacher was all worried about me. Are you okay? Are you okay? And it was the silliest thing that Mozart ever wrote, the little night music. It's such a happy little thing. And I was just like, wow, weeping. And from that moment, I knew, okay, that's it. That's what I want to do, And so it's not like I ever had a choice. What am I going to be when I'm grown up? Ever. At the same time, since my early teens, for some mysterious reason, maybe karmic reason, who knows, I was fascinated with Eastern philosophies. Of course, I'm a child of the 60s, so I was very influenced by, all the psychedelic culture that was very much exploring that area. So I was reading Zen books and Taoist books and Sufi books along with my comic books, And I had experiences that were, now I look back on them and I go, they really marked me. They really marked me. One was this vision of life as a form of consciousness. I was very young and I really had this feeling that whatever these people are calling God is something that's all-pervading, and in the very clear feeling is that it had a motherly aspect to it. It was a mother, and it was caring for me as long as I surrendered. I had this feeling that all these people out there creating their safety nets with money and all of these societal games. They created the safety net, and the mother goes like, okay, you're okay. Call me if you need me. But if you live in total faith, and literally my life has been reckless, and the mother is always there going like, oh, wait a minute. This is not there, but there. And your path becomes a magical path of synchronicities. And that's basically the story of my life, just magical synchronicities. I've traveled the entire world with very little money, and I live like a millionaire. For instance, I went to India with $800 in my back pocket and no travel information whatsoever, landed in Sri Lanka, was surrounded by little black men screaming at me, "Where are you going? I shall take you. Come to my taxi, come to my taxi." And I had no idea even what the city name was. "Are you going to Colombo?" I go like, "Yeah, sure. Let's go to Colombo." And out of the sea of black faces, this white arm came and says, "Where are you going?" And it's this woman that I had met very briefly in the airplane. She was German, and she took me and deposited me, because she had been in Sri Lanka for years, and deposited me in the most divine beach on a little cabin on the beach that cost me $8 a day with food and everything. And with those $800, I lived 3 years in India. Don't ask me how. I don't know how. Pure faith in life and music. Music really opens. It really opens doors wide open, because it's for me, it's the language of love. It's beyond cultural restrictions, beyond everything. So that's why I do what I do, because the more I do it, the more faith I have in it, and the more beauty comes my way, and the more beauty I can share with people. And my faith is restored daily on this kind of work that I'm doing. So
how would you describe that work? Going back to the topic of Pepe soup. So how would you describe these ingredients that you use in what you do?
Well, I started as a rock musician. I mean, not really. I studied classical guitar since I was 7 years old. I went to conservatory. I studied classical music, piano, blah, blah, blah. But when I was able to do my own thing, age 13, 14, I had an electric guitar, and I went straight into rock music. And so I had my rock life and my spiritual life running parallel, but never touching each other, until I moved. I must have been 19, 20. I moved to the States. I had to escape Uruguay. It was a military dictatorship. A lot of my friends died or disappeared or tortured, and it was dangerous to be there. And in the States, I heard the shakuhachi, and that changed my life. Because the shakuhachi, it was the sound of my spirit spirit calling out to my original home. And I fell madly in love with the sound, and I pursued it.
What is shakuhachi to people who hear about it for the first time?
Shakuhachi is an ancient flute that probably transformed from Egypt to China to Japan, and on each culture transformed it. And in Japan, it ended up being taken up by Zen monks as a form of Zen meditation. And so you have Zazen, which is sitting meditation. You have Zuisen, which is literally blowing meditation. And so at the time, there were many temples where the actual practice was the shakuhachi flute. And eventually, in all the temples, there developed certain very simple pieces that recalled the same as sutra chanting. So it's very repetitive, and it's funny because in Western music you have three elements that kind of we understand make music. We have harmony, rhythm, and melody, right? Whereas shakuhachi music has none of those. You know, you don't have a melody that you can whistle to. Impossible. There's no rhythm. There's just the rhythm of the breathing, and there's certainly no harmony. So, and in fact, from a shakuhachi perspective, it's not music. It's sonic prayer, basically, right? And it's very, very personal. Some players have 2 or 3 pieces that they learn, and that's their prayer. They're not performers. They don't expand. There's not about technique. Every day you go and you play this one piece. The sound is so particular and so soulful because it's considered one of the most difficult instruments to play in the world. So you have to be crazy to play the shakuhachi. You have to have an incredible amount of discipline and commitment and love for the instrument. And when I heard it, I just simply knew this was the sound of my soul. Which is kind of weird, because here's an Uruguayan living in America listening to a Japanese flute, and yet it was so powerful that it changed my life. I sold everything. I managed to get a flute, and the man that got me the flute from Japan run a store of world instruments 3 hours away from where I lived, and he was a very devoted Sufi. So he also turned me on to Sufism and into a school of Gurđieva, which I was already practicing. And so I ended up in this Gurđieva school for a full year, a retreat year. After I sold everything, I was married at the time. My wife left, and it's a before and after kind of story. And it's funny because every shakuhachi player has a before and after shakuhachi story. It's a profound instrument.
Did your involvement with the teachings of Gurđijev affect the way you played music?
Wow. No, I don't think so. But I wouldn't know how to answer that, because those teachings are so deeply ingrained in my being that I don't look at them anymore as something, it's just who I am. Because I was reading Gurđijev books when I was 14, 15, 16, and devouring them. And then I spent a year in the school of Mr. Bennett, who's a direct disciple. And this is my foundation. So it affects everything I do without any question, But I came to the shakuhachi already with a big foundation from these teachings of awareness, of taking care of the body, being careful of my breathing and my diet, and 20 years of yoga before I even came to the shakuhachi. So yes and no, you know what I mean? It's not in a specific way that I could say, but it's part of my being. So it's my foundation.
Likewise, because I was growing up without a father, my mom used to read me the books of Gurđijev when I was just 6 or 7 years old.
No, really? Wow.
So yeah, he was kind of like a father figure as I was growing up.
Amazing.
Yeah, and I'm so grateful to her that she actually introduced me to his work. And like you said, like I now perceive him kind of like as an inseparable part of what I am. And actually, when we were both in one ceremony, I had a really interesting insight that I would like to share with you now about Gurđijev. As we were going deeper and deeper into this ceremony and this widening of our consciousness, I got this feeling that Gurđijev performed kind of like a magical ritual while writing his books. I felt as if though he performed a ritual where he transferred pieces of his consciousness into his books that we received after we read those books. So in a way, he lives in us through his books. And I was just like, I mean, like, that's probably what happens, like, with each and every one author that writes some kind of book that, like, he wants to actually shift something in people. We intake a part of their consciousness. But with Gurđijev, I literally felt like he did it intentionally. And I was just like, that makes sense, because, like, some of his teachings I find to be kind of like an inseparable part of my identity. And I was just like, holy shit. You know?
Well, you know, he has this very unique take that has most definitely influenced my music making, called objective art, objective music. And he claims that through sound and through words, he can create objective effects in the listener, you know, all to the point that, if I remember correctly, he said, I could make your knee itch with sound. And if 10 people were listening, all of 10 would have itchy knee,
the same effect.
You know?
Yeah.
And so that fascinated me. And when I heard Čekovača, I thought this is the closest thing to objective music that I've ever heard. You know, apart from some raga music from India, which also is created with that intention, you know, very clear intention, a very specific effect in the human psyche. And this is a beautiful idea that has very much influenced me all throughout.
So music and shakuhachi, they're a big part of this Pepe soup.
It's
a mixture.
Fundamental, yes.
What else?
Nothing else. I think that's the best way. But, you know, through all these years of practice and yoga and endless retreats and meditation and exploration of different spiritual traditions, I have a certain amount of experience that seems to interest people that I speak about. So very reluctantly, I give workshops and talks and whatever, and it seems to help people. So who am I not to do it if it helps people? But I'm reluctant, you know, because there's so much information out there right now, so much information. I'm reluctant to add more information to that whirlwind of, you know, nowadays you can be an expert in chocolate and give lectures in universities about chocolate and never have tasted a piece of chocolate. You know what I mean? This is a metaphor that I'm speaking, but that's how it is. With particularly in the spirit world, you know, you have people 2-week or 2-month retreat, and they go out there and they're teachers. And so I'm reluctant. I'm a reluctant teacher, but it's the ball seems to keep rolling. So I surrender to that.
Well, in a way, adding to what you just said, when we last spoke, you shared that you're at a point in life where you feel like there isn't that much to say, actually. And that you prefer kind of like to remain in this place of silence until somebody asks you about a specific topic. So how would you describe this subtle place of deep inner silence that you carry deep within you? And why is it so important to you?
Thank you for that. It's the essence. It's the essence of life. There's a whole philosophy in Buddhism around the word shunyata, which means emptiness. And as long as that remains an intellectual idea, it's impossible to relate to the depth of what that means. But I have had the privilege of the experience of being in that nothingness, because for the ego it feels like nothing, but that nothing is an everything. And then everything kind of takes a different perspective in life. You know, it's you get much more calm. The other aspect of it is death, you know, the beauty of death, which I had the pain and the privilege of meeting kind of face to face a couple of times. And it also just completely changes your perspective on life, because death is always reminding us to be alive in this moment, in full presence and in full gratitude for this moment that we are given. And so the quietness, it's the only way to receive the moment in all its wholeness, in all its beauty, in all its magic, because the mind doesn't have the capacity to be in the moment. Just is not what it's meant to do, right? The mind is meant to look forward and figure things out, and the danger and this and that, and remember the past and relate it to the future, blah, 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 and it never stops. And the heart has a better capacity to be in the moment, but mostly the heart is relating to past experience, right? We carry all these traumas, and, you know, Mary hurt me, so I cannot love Susan. You know what I mean? It's like, what? Susan has nothing to do with Mary, but we carry these traumas. And so these traumas and experiences that we carry in the emotional center color our experience of life. And so the only one that has the ability to be in the moment is our body. The body is in the moment. And so through the medium of breath, we can keep connecting with the presence in the body. And through the medium of breath, we can calm down the noise in the mind and the fears of the heart and the memories about, and just show up for our life right here. And when we do that, it's quiet in there. You know what I mean? It's so beautifully quiet in there. And that quietness contains absolutely everything in a very effortless embrace. And it's got the fragrance, the quality of bliss, of joy, no matter what the outer circumstances are. And this is the most important part, maybe, you know, to embody this joy, this bliss, this gratitude, this presence, regardless of outer circumstances. And it's possible. It's possible. So, not sure if that's a full answer to your question.
Yeah, I think it is, actually. I really connected to what you were saying. And it's interesting, this emptiness, which is related to the silence, is not actually empty at all. And I think that is probably one of the biggest misunderstandings when it comes to exploring the Buddhist teachings. I actually read one wonderful article from Dzogchen Ponlop Rinpoche, and it was about what emptiness actually means in Buddhist traditions. Mm-hmm. And I'm really going to risk it here when I speak about it, because I'm just slowly going into these teachings, so probably I'm going to fuck it up, but I'm going to make it my best to kind of like share my understanding. Is that usually he said, like, when we say that things are empty, we don't mean they're actually empty, like they're missing something. But when we say that they're empty, we're speaking about what they are empty of.
Exactly.
Because everything in this world is interdependent. Nothing can exist on its own. So each and every physical thing lacks this essence of existing on its own, which is a part of the ultimate reality in a way. So when I read that, I was just like, wow. It totally gave me I got a new understanding of what actually emptiness meant. So yeah. Do you think I got it right?
You got it right.
Okay. I mean, you've been in Buddhism so many years, so
that's pretty much essentially what it is. It's emptiness of thingness. right? Because this thing that you're witnessing is called Pepe, but the cellular structure is renewed every 7 years. The mind keeps going, the emotions keep going, and there's a continuity. There's a Pepiness, but what is it? What really is it? It's just an idea. We call the river Danube, but you come to the same place 10 years later and it's completely changed. It's not the same water, it's not the same place. So Danube is just an idea, right? And everything in existence is a process and not a thing. And when we name it, we give it a thingness and a reality that's not there. It's in constant change. And so it's empty of thingness. And therefore, from a Buddhist perspective, it's empty of quote-unquote reality, because it's never the same thing. It's always changing. How can you name a process, stop the process, give it a name, and this is what it is? But we need that, right? We need that safety as human beings. Okay, I name it, I know what it is. No. And that's beautiful, to come to a deep realization of this, because then life becomes a constant mystery, a constant process. You go back to my Zen teacher, only don't know, right? Only don't know. Because we name something and we think we know it. Right. Right. And that's why the older I get, the less I have to say, because the more I know how much I don't know, So I can speak from my experience, but it's not like I know something. This is what I have experienced, and if it serves others to hear that, fantastic. But I'm not going to pretend to know anything, man. And I love that. I love and that's what I really want to express in my life and maybe transmit to whoever is there out there listening, is just to love the mystery, to love the I don't know it, to love the amazingness of this mysterious universe. That the deeper we go into scientific knowledge, the more we know the incredible mystery of it, right? Because right now, quantum physics and Tantra are basically saying the same thing. That's why the Dalai Lama is so keen to speak with scientists, because it just confirms everything that the wise people have been saying for thousands of years,
What is like the thing that both the traditional aspect of Buddhist teachings and the modern scientific aspect slowly are starting to agree upon?
This the illusion of materiality, the illusion of permanence, the illusion of thinking we know anything, and the miraculous essence of existence and the unknowability of the mystery of the universe, and the beauty within that, because all the scientists are as much in love with this mystery as the mystics. In fact, nowadays, there's very little difference between the mystics and the scientists. Scientists are sounding like mystics, and mystics are sounding like scientists, you know what I mean? Because, it's so beautiful, it's so exciting, I mean, knowing is kind of boring. You put things in a little box, you put a label on the box, end of the story, but it just don't work like that, and so you become an eternal student, an eternal enjoyer, and a dancer in the mystery of life. And for me, that's absolutely beautiful, And so I don't mind to speak to a mystic or to a scientist. I'm just having a great time with sharing the mysterious quality of every breath I take.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I just wanted to go back slightly to the topic of death that you mentioned, that you confronted that. You've been going on a date with that several times. I frequently remember a wonderful story that you shared when you were in Varanasi, in Benares, waiting to die. Would you be open to share that story also with my audience? Because I think it's such a wonderful story.
Sure.
Was it one of those times actually when you had a date with death?
Maybe the main one. Yeah. I had a couple of more, but this was our love affair. Yeah, my guru requested that I bathe in the Ganges every day, which I of course did, but I started feeling more and more comfortable, so I ended up swimming across the Ganges, because in front of Varanasi there's nothing. It's like a desert, and you can see, or at least at that time, and you can see the whole city. It's like being in the Bible. It was so nice. But there's corpses floating in the Ganges. And so on top of the corpse, there's this huge birds eating the corpse. So, and of course, in the coast, there's the burning guts. So there's constant human barbecue and the smell of human flesh being, so you're surrounded by death. My guru, of course, assured me that the Ganges purifies you and that you never get sick, and I did get sick. Maybe not from the Ganges, who knows? But when I went to this quote-unquote doctor, he said, oh, it's Shiva fever. I'm going, oh, okay, so what do we do? And he says, we don't know what it is. It'll probably kill you. Because what happens with so-called Shiva fever, or whatever I had at the moment, is that you stop digesting. So there's no point in eating, because everything comes out of you as water immediately. And you have a constant fever that slowly eats you up. So you slowly disappear. And for me, that was very blissful, because like I said, I had already many, many years of yoga, meditation, Gurđiev training behind me. And I could accept, okay. As a matter of fact, I had read all the Hermann Hesse and Aldous Huxley and all these beautiful books. And I thought, wow, what a romantic death, here I am dying in Benares. And so, because it was a very gentle death, you just slowly disappear. And my teacher taught me how to make bhang lassi, which is a drink that has fairly large quantity of DMT, and you kind of work these green herbs on a stone that's all inscribed in mantras, and you make this green mud, and you add a bit of yogurt and you drink this. So I was pretty high, high on fever, high on fasting, high on bhang lassi, living on the edge of the Ganges. It was beautiful. I was reading my Bhagavad Gita every day. I think I went down to 53 kilos or something like that. Just to see the photographs, I was all bone. And I had taken initiation into Tibetan Tantra, so I had shaved my head. I looked like a creature. Yeah. If my mother had seen me, she would not have recognized me. And the story goes that one very, very hot day, I decided to sleep on the roof. And I woke up the next morning surrounded by, what are these birds called? Thank you. Surrounded by vultures. At least 10 vultures that stank so strongly that I could barely breathe. So the first thing was a stink. And I have a hard time breathing. I open my eyes and I'm surrounded by vultures with these faces. Can we start eating now? Are you dead? And I moved and wow, these massive birds flew away. What a moment. I'll never forget that moment, And something in me went like, maybe I'm not quite ready to be eaten by vultures. Maybe I have more to do on this planet. And the only way that I'll survive is if I leave India. So the leaving of India is a book in itself that maybe I'll tell you about some other day, because it's a long story. It would make a movie. But I ended up in Italy being healed by Italian mamas with pizza therapy.
It's the best medicine.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's the best medicine.
It's religion, man.
Yeah.
Mangia, oh, pobrecito, mangia. And it took me several months to recuperate, and somehow it was very interesting get over it, because once the healing started, I had this bright red spot in my chest, and it slowly started expanding all around my body like some kind of skin disease, but it just was obviously moving out, and then it ended up in my hands, and then it just disappeared, and that was it. Full mystery. I have no idea what any of that was about, but it gave me the gift of total surrender to death, which has been a beautiful blessing in my life. Once you surrender to death, you can relax in life. You know what I mean? I'm ready to go anytime. In fact, I'm excited to go. When she comes for me, I go like, hey, okay, let's do this. I want to know what's on the other side. Because if there's something on the other side, great. And if there's nothing, well, what to worry about? Because we don't know, right? We don't know. And it's a beautiful mystery. I'm ready to meet that mystery. In fact, I have met it, and I have my own experience of what it is, but you never know if your experience is actual mental trip or it's actual reality. I would never say, I've been there, I know what it is. Yeah, I've been there, but I don't know what it is. And I cannot say that you will have the same experience. It's all so mysterious and beautiful. So, but I know there's more. I know there's more than what we perceive. I know there's more than what we perceive in our five senses. And I know we can actually transmute and overcome this physical existence. I have no question about that. What it is, I don't know. But I know it's beautiful. There's a beauty in it, That's why in yoga they say Sat Chit Ananda. And Ananda means bliss. And it's funny for us, What do you mean bliss? There's so much suffering in life and so much cruelty in the world. How can the essence be bliss? But like I said before, if you quiet the mind and if you quiet the heart and you come to this body and you come into this silence, it's very easily labeled as bliss. It's a beautiful thing. Even within the chaos of this 3D world, you can always find that inner temple and rest there and rest. And eventually that inner temple becomes so pervasive in your life that you just carry it everywhere you go. And it has the beautiful frequency that people can feel, That's why I'm very faithful that the inner work our inner individual work is what possibly can make a change in this world. Politics is a very interesting path, but I think it's just band-aid. There's no political system will work unless the human nature perfects itself. Imperfect human beings can only use political systems imperfectly. And beautiful human beings can only make beauty out of any political system. There's been wonderful kings. There's been true communism, true democracy. It can happen if human beings that run it are perfected human beings. And so that's our individual work, to perfect our quality as a human being. There's no end to that work, and it's beautiful work, And as far as I'm concerned, it's the only work worthwhile. Whatever else we do is by the way. But we all have to be looking inside and cultivating our humanity. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing this. I really enjoyed it.
My pleasure.
I feel like Do we really need to continue with questions? Like, yeah, just continue. Just please continue.
I can't go on. Be careful.
That's why we are here.
Because I'm truly in love with it all. You know, I think it's a poem. You know, being human in this world is a beautiful poem, and there's beauty in our joy, and there's beauty in our suffering. You know, it's beautiful. I love humans. I love humans, and I love this creation of ours, as painful as it is, and there is no knowing joy without having known pain, you know. And so we need this yin yang balance. But there's no question that we are, as humanity, as a collective, out of balance, and that's where individual work is really fundamental, and helping each other to do this individual work. It's really important. And so that's where I'm willing to sit down and talk about it, because I do think we all need to help each other in this. And I put a lot of time in this work, as I still remain a fool, an ignorant fool, but I put a lot of work. So I have lots to share about the value of these traditions, you know, and the beauty of these traditions, and the depth of them, and the potential help that these tools can give us. You know? Yeah.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you really sharing that. And the funny thing about us relying to any kind of system is that we simply cannot expect whatever system to do this personal work for us. We just need to do it by ourselves. Nobody's going to do it for us, actually.
Exactly. But the tools have been developed for over millennia.
Yeah,
you know?
like
So
technologies, literally technologies.
But a hammer is a hammer, you know. You still have to know what kind of house you want, and you still have to know what nails. And once you build the house, you don't need the hammer anymore, right? But you need a good hammer.
Now, when you mentioned that, you're kind of like, you know that there is much more to this reality than we perceive it to be. You know who knows that for sure? The mantis shrimp. He has like 16 different additional sensors in its eyes that can see way more than we can. So there's one creature that can actually, if it had a voice, it could confirm there's much more than we perceive through our senses.
Well, there's octopuses and there's eagles. And,
like octopuses have like 3 brains.
Yeah. And there's dolphins and there's whales. I mean, you know, this superiority that we pretend to have as human beings is ridiculous, you know, and that's where our connection with nature is really fundamental, you know. Sometimes I get very, very sad when I'm watching maybe my iPad or on TV, this beautiful nature programs, you know, because they're so beautiful, and yet here I am in this cement box and in this screen, you know, feeling so far from that reality, and thirsting to just be there. Fortunately, I am a traveler, so I have the opportunity to immerse myself in nature, and so recommend it. On the other hand, you know, we cannot depend on external circumstances to find this inner temple. So yes, it's beautiful and easier to do in nature, but we need the capacity to find that in any environment.
So now that you mentioned this recognition of this inner temple, you have had a really rich and diverse life of spiritual seeking, and you have many, so to speak, many interesting furniture in that temple. You have many wonderful elements that you fill that temple with. And I really love hearing you speak about all these different traditions, ancient knowledge, and teachings. But at the same time, sometimes I find it hard to kind of like get this clear timeline as to what happened when.
Me too.
Yeah. Would you be willing?
I love to talk to friends because they tell me about my life. Yeah. I go, really?
Would you be willing to explore that a bit? Just kind of like to give me like this kind of like an overview of how this vast spiritual journey had begun and like how it evolved through time.
It began with Uspensky's book, In Search of the Miraculous, which blew my mind. And
Likewise.
I really felt this is the truth that I will pursue. Mm-hmm. At the same time, I was reading Suzuki,
Suzuki Roshi.
Suzuki and Zen Buddhism. And of course, I was reading lots of science fiction and Isaac Asimov and all these amazing readers. And your name, Damien, comes from Hermann Hesse, which
he's up there.
One of my favorite books ever.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was devouring these books. So that's how it started. That's the beauty of these times. You really had to search for the knowledge. And so it had so much more value. Nowadays, knowledge is like, you Google it and you know it. And it loses its value because it's so easy to find and there's so much variety. Those days, you had to search for a book and it was difficult to find. And when you found it, it was a treasure and you sat down and you read it. You read it from cover to cover if it lasted a month. And so I was very passionate about these subjects. And so when I went to the States, the first teaching I searched was a Gurđev teaching. So I went to this, imagine my joy when I go to the States and there's spiritual bookstores. Spiritual bookstores with rooms and rooms. It's like, oh my God. And of course, I went to search for the Gurđev section. And in the Gurđev section, there was a book and something fell from it. And it was a card to contact the Gurđev people, which I immediately did. And I went through a very thorough interview and I was accepted. And I started this group that was like once a week, you get together, you discuss the ideas, they give you some meditation, you come back the next week, blah, blah. And I did that for a good year. And it was beautiful because it was in the Uspensky tradition. To the point, I remember this beautiful story where I used to go after the meetings to an Indian restaurant that I loved, very, very small, family-oriented. And they started knowing me, and we liked each other a lot. And I remember this time I went and I ate, and I was completely in this thought process. And so I left. And when I walked about 4 blocks, I realized, I didn't pay. So I walked back to the place. I go like, how do you let me leave without paying? You have to just call me. And the Indian man says, you look very, very thoughtful and having very important thoughts. And I did not want to interrupt your thoughts. Oh my God, you're so beautiful. It was so beautiful. It was one of those moments. And so through the shakuhachi, I discovered silence. Because in shakuhachi, there's this element called ma. And the ma is the most important part of the music, which is the silence between the notes. So you take a breath, you play one phrase, and then you listen. And the silence, the sound becomes simply a portal, a doorway into a deeper silence. And so when I started exploring that silence, that was a path that I wanted to pursue. And so through the shakuhachi, I met this beautiful Sufi man who became a mentor, who took me to this beautiful school way out in the mountains in West Virginia, which was run by Bennett. Mm-hmm. And Bennett had a very different philosophy than Uspensky. There was almost enemies, right? Uspensky is like once a week, discuss it, think about it, practice it. And Bennett is going like, we have no time for that. I'm going to cut off your head. Then I'm going to rebuild you. Good luck to you. If you can handle it, great. And if you don't, this is important work. So I ended up living for a whole year in this Gurđev situation that was really harsh, because literally they're going to cut off your head and rebuild you. So they cut down your ego moment by moment. act by act. Like one day I go to the bathrooms. I'm a very private guy in the bathroom. I like to have a moment of peace there by myself. They had removed all the doors of the stalls. It's like, so every little detail just cutting off your ego. and they were guys that we called residents who were like professional assholes.
Torturers.
Yes. Yeah, literally. Because they were trained, in psychology, and they were very aware people. So one moment of unawareness, you're going to get slapped in your face and you're going to get woken up, So it was harsh. It was harsh, and it was life-changing year in my life. But the beauty of the school is that they gave us an education, holistic education on all the spiritual traditions of the world, literally bringing the top teachers from every tradition. So we spent 3 months with Suleiman Dede. Suleiman Dede was the last imam of the whirling dervishes. He was 99 years old, and he was like the Dalai Lama of the Sufis. He came, taught us personally with his son, Jalaluddin, and he came with musicians and whirlers, and I did the actual whirling with Suleiman Dede. Wow. And experienced this beautiful Rumi tradition. He brought Christian mystics. We had endless talks about the Bible and Jesus. He brought Vipassana teachers from Sri Lanka. We did long Vipassana retreats with fasting. He brought Tibetan masters. I mean, the education that we got was incredible. The group, we were about 60 people living together, and the group was divided in 3. So we had 3-day cycles. A 1-day cycle was the house cycle. You learn how to make bread, you learn how to cook, you clean bathrooms, you're in total service. The next day was the outside day, because we were self-sufficient. So you had the chickens, and you had the cows, and you had the gardens, and you had to clean the roads, blah, blah, blah. And the third day was a study day. You studied the system, teachers came, blah, blah. So it was beautiful, beautiful cycle. And so that's when I fell in love with Buddhism, because in contrast to the Gurđieva teaching, Buddhism was so heart-centered, and these monks had such great sense of humor and this constant smile. Compassion, all-embracing, great sense of humor, So we're like, okay, Buddhism. And as soon as I can, I went to India and immerse myself in Buddhism. And Tibetan Buddhism ended up my soul calling, even though I spent lots of time in the south in Sri Lanka doing Vipassana retreats, blah, blah, blah. And then through my exploration of Buddhism, I had, as I told you, been reading about Zen. So, and the shakuhachi is so intimately related to Zen. So I ended up in Japan for 3 years. And in the meantime, exploring. I lived in Kashmir for quite a while, in Srinagar, and I met a lot of people who were involved in Tantra, and so I learned a lot about that. Kashmir at that time was out of this world. In Srinagar, you lived in a lake, in a beautifully carved boat, and the market would come by in the water. Hello, do you need rings? Hello, do you need a mala? Hello, do you need vessel? And you open your window, and the man is there with a boat, and you go, yeah, this and this and that. So you do your shopping from your bed, opening the window, and it's just absolutely surreal landscape that, again, it feels like you're back in biblical times. And I had my little boat that I was given by the man who owned the big boat, and so I would row out in the middle of the huge lake surrounded by the Himalayas. And one day I saw this very pirate-looking ship way out there in the middle of nowhere. So just like, wow, what is this? This was owned by German hippies, and it was like a hippie place. You went there, you smoked hash and opium. There was Pink Floyd playing all day long, surrounded in the mountains and floating, in beautiful hammocks and eating amazing food. So I would just row there every day, listening to Dire Straits and Pink Floyd and Led Zeppelin in the middle of nowhere, man. It was a dream. It was a dream. So I always had this parallel lives, the shamanic psychedelic life always calling me, and the spiritual life parallel to that, which I discovered that they're not that different. If you really dig into the Buddhist tradition, there's a very strong shamanic undercurrent there, and the use of amrita and substances is very widespread, right? So these things came together for me in India very much. The use of certain herbal blessings that invite you to experience dimensions of reality that our five senses cannot attain. So it was a very, very beautiful time. And so that's where I got very interested and in love with Tantra, with Shaiva Tantra.
In Kashmir, while you were in Kashmir.
In Kashmir, yeah. Mm-hmm. And then I spent quite a bit of time in China, and I really, the Tao Te Ching is my number one book. So the Taoist ideas and practices are really important. I did not receive initiation into them, but I practice a lot of Qigong and stuff like that. And it's a beautiful practice. So I really respect the Taoist teachings, and I spent some time in China, just immersed in the culture. I didn't take specific Taoist teachings. Unfortunately, I would love to do that, but I really imbibed the culture, and I devoured the Tao Te Ching, at least 30 translations of it. So it's really part of my being and how I function in life. So beautiful. So that kind of gives you a timeline of a Pepe soup there. I started the whole thing, which I didn't mention, with a book. I think the name is André van Lisbeth, and I think he is Dutch, and he wrote a book that is out of print now called Yoga Self-Taught. And I started when I was maybe 13, 14, just from that book, doing Hatha Yoga. And over the years, as a teacher and a practitioner, I realized that book taught me really correctly, that I was practicing correctly from the very beginning with that very, very beautiful book, which I still own, this old book, where the pages start getting yellowish, and it's got this nice smell of old paper that I just love. So Yoga Self-Taught, really amazing book. Yeah.
Wow, what a soup. It's like hearing multiple lifetimes.
It is.
Within one.
It is, yeah.
It's an amazing journey.
That's why it's fun for me to meet friends from those times and hear the stories about Pepe. Just a very good old friend of mine happened to be in Serbia at the same time as me for my birthday, which is amazing. And he was telling me all kinds of stories about our childhood. I said, really? We did that? Oh my God, oh yeah, I remember. So beautiful, so beautiful. Yeah.
So now, after all those years of seeking, getting involved into so many different spiritual traditions and experiences, how would you describe the current model of reality that you hold and that you think makes most sense to you?
This guy. Okay. Let's dive into that. Model of reality. I think it's very easy. It's a mystery. It's a complete mystery. A divinely emanated mystery, because I can feel the divinity in every breath I take right now, and it's a gift that I received from my Tantra practice. And it's beautiful. It's the essence of it is absolute beauty and absolute bliss, and playful. That's why I tell, people who I could call students, if you go to a spiritual teacher and they don't have a sense of humor, get out of there, because it's a cosmic joke. It's a cosmic joke, and it's a dance. And we are here to give the oneness a little perspective on Damien-ness and Pepe-ness, and enjoy this limited perception of the great mystery as a beautiful dance within this incredible universal eternity that we will never be able to conceptualize, because the mind cannot conceptualize the great mystery. It's like trying to put the ocean in a bottle, it just can't be done. And the more we open ourselves up to the great mystery and leave behind all the conceptual little boxes, the deeper we can breathe, and the more we can expand into the beauty of isness, the beauty of simply beingness. And our perception of reality becomes non-conceptual, and therefore cannot be spoken. It cannot be talked about. It can only be smiled at and loved and embraced and surrendered at in total gratitude and in total trust. That's a tough one. That's a tough one, to really trust life as a form of consciousness that we're not in contact with, we are part of. And therefore, we are not communicating with it. We are it. All we have to do is remember ourselves, which is a beautiful word that you know well from the Gurđijev tradition, right? Remember yourself. In Tantra, it's called recognition, the recognition sutras. And Gurđijev is remember. And some other philosophies is wake up to it. Wake up to it. We already are it. And so when we become it, there's peace within that. There's a very deep peace within that we can carry with us in life. And so if you ask me about reality, no idea what it is. Nowadays, there's serious scientists saying that it's all a simulation, that we're like computer origin simulation, and it's possible. Everything is possible. But does it matter to me? Not at all. I don't care what version of this reality anyone carries. The only thing I care is to be present in this moment to whatever it is that it is, because the only way I can experience it is by being there for it. And if you show up for it, it will reveal itself in time. In its own time, in your own time, according to your evolution and the openness of your perception and your consciousness. And it doesn't matter whether it takes a month, 10 years, or 10 lifetimes. It doesn't matter. That's what the game is about. That's what the game is. The game is to learn the rules of the game, which is kind of a painful paradox, maybe, but that's what it is, When once we learn what the game is about, we can dance. Yeah, I'm dancing. I'm having a great time, with all of it. I've lost a daughter. My mother died while I was on tour, far away. I've lost friends. I've gone through military dictatorships, war-like situations, financial trouble. All of us have known all of these situations and near-death experiences. And behind all of it, I still see the beauty. I still see the poetry of it, because I got to experience it in that deep silence within that tells me, it's okay. It's okay.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And grappling with not such an easy question. But yeah, I think you did a wonderful job, and thank you so much. Now, hearing you speak about the what is the most important thing in life, I remember, I'm not sure if Suzuki Roshi said that, but like the most important thing in life is to find out what is the most important thing in life. Which is kind of like such a Zen thing to say.
And importance is problematic, you know?
Exactly.
Importance is problematic because nothing is above anything else. Exactly. And therefore, if you make anything important, you're already creating duality, you know? And so the most important thing is to get rid of importance. And yet we do live in this duality, in this 3D world, and so we have to know what our principles are and what our ethics are, and these things are important. But eventually when you get the realization of this so-called shunyata, you know, you realize that everything is important and nothing is important, because it's the same thing to say nothing or everything is important. But and so you stop giving importance to your daily 1 hour meditation. This is important, you know. But it's as important as cutting the potato for the next meal. It's as important as sitting in the toilet. It's important as walking to the bank. You stop putting things above other things, and you realize life is the soup, you know, and whatever spoonful of soup you're having at this moment is equally important as the rest of the soup. And the only thing that counts is to be present to it. So the separation disappears between sitting in my altar doing my practice and walking to the bank, walking to the supermarket, or going to the bathroom, or cooking the next meal, or my communication with the waiter at the coffee shop. All equally fundamental. All equally an opportunity to show up for your life in that moment, because that's all you got, you know. I have a good friend that was a death, kind of a death doula, you know, facilitating the process of dying. And she says that 99% of the regrets are what you didn't do, never what you did. So go ahead and screw up as much as you can, but do, you know, live, screw up. We're all going to make mistakes. But it's the fear and what we don't do that we regret. And of course, you know, hurting the ones we love, which is inevitable, also hurts a lot. But the capacity to recognize that and have the opportunity to address those pains, and so we can go without any debts, you know, very, very important. To live life fully and to fix those debts we have with the ones we love, even in our hearts. You know, sometimes it's not possible to do physically, but
yeah, you mentioned something that I also find to be absolutely fascinating about you and your life, and that is the level of belief and acceptance you have towards life. How did you learn to surrender control and to be so open to life? I mean, like, was there any hard part of this process of surrender that you experienced in your life? And was it even hard in your life?
I was very lucky. I had the greatest mother in the world, you know, so I grew up because, you know, we're talking about the 50s, right? So, and my mother was so loving that to the point where her friend said, you know, you're too touchy with your son. You're too loving. He's going to be gay. They were convinced that she shouldn't love me so much because I'm going to be all vulnerable and gay. And quite the opposite happened, you know. I grew up with a lot of inner strength thanks to her. And she was my first guru. She was an amazing human. So I think I grew up with a very beautiful foundation. I was very lucky. I made a good choice in my mama. And And then I had this vision that I told you about that was so strong. And as a child, it was impossible for me to conceptualize it. But it was an emotional feeling of trust. Just trust life. Just trust it. It's a form of conscience, and you're part of it, and it's all good. And then I lived a reckless life, and every time it turned out all right. Because I was in total faith. And it's, I want to make a little conceptual distinction between believing and faith, because I like to call it faith in life rather than belief. Because a belief is a conceptual construct. And I very much discourage my friends and students to believe in anything. Because believe in something means that you don't know it. Right? Mm-hmm. And if you don't know it, you believe it because what? You read it in a book or someone told you or what? But you don't know it. So why believe in things that you don't know? Belief is a conceptual construct that is taken up usually by the ego, and it becomes part of your identity. And then the identity has to defend that belief, and we end up killing each other over our beliefs that we don't really have realized in our lives and really understand. Whereas on the other side, there's what I call faith. And faith is a kind of non-conceptual knowledge that somehow you carry inside yourself, and this is a truth for yourself. You don't need to explain it, you don't need to defend it, but it's part of your beingness, So I cannot say that I believe in anything. In fact, I have a problem with just the word belief. But I have great faith, very, very deep faith in my teachers and in the teachings and in life. But the thing about faith is a bit more of a scientific process, Okay, I have this faith, but this faith needs to be proven in real life and experimented with. And so you go and it's like this scientific theory that you have the things are a certain way, but then you have to experiment with sincerity and with objectivity whether this theory is true. And even if you prove it true, that's your experience. You cannot, impose it on anybody else. And so my theory that life is a form of conscience that I can be in touch with and I can be part of has proven true time and time and time again. And so for me, that it's a truth, but it's my truth, So I can share it with great love and great conviction, but I cannot say it's the truth, because the truth remains a great mystery. But it's, for sure, I can say it's a beautiful way to live. It's a beautiful way to live, to have this beautiful communication with this essential oneness that everything is, and to feel and realize in your life this beautiful state of oneness with everything that is. It's a beautiful way to be. And so there's something to it. So I am confident in sharing this possibility with others, because I know that, I'm turning 70 years old, and I'm as young or even younger than I was 30 years ago, because it's a very healthy way of living and a healthy way of managing the mind and the body and the emotions. And it's been transmitted by people of great wisdom over millennia. So I give a lot of value to that. There's a trend now to deny the teachings. And of course, gurus have abused their powers endlessly. And so now there's this anti-guru thing. And on the other hand, there's all these Instagram gurus showing up all over the place. And it's a bit of a mess. But I have great faith in the depth of the teachings when properly communicated and properly practiced.
Yeah, now that you mentioned this faith in the teachings, when we embark on a spiritual journey, at least I can speak for me, most of us are kind of like spiritual enthusiasts, and we have most of the time no idea as to what we're doing and as to what we're actually exploring. But then at one point, a teacher or an experience comes into our lives that totally shatters everything we thought we knew about reality or everything we thought we knew about ourselves. And that's actually a moment where the actual growth happens. So you already shared some of those experiences, and I guess you had a lot of them. But would you be willing to maybe share such an experience also with my audience and with me at this time?
For instance, I went to a 3-month Tibetan Tantra retreat with these beautiful teachers, Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa. They were my teachers. And Lama Zopa was probably insane. In a beautiful way. And so I never forget the very first impressions, because you had to pay quite a bit of money to be there. I don't know who gave me the money or how I got there. I actually don't remember. But we're all sitting there just about to meet the great guru, right? And Lama Zopa was about killing what you say, your sense of reality and your expectations. And so he was this little man, and he suffered a lot through his escape from Tibet into India. You know, they got very sick, and they did things that were superhuman to arrive through the Himalayas into India. And so, you know, he suffered from quite a few physical ailments, and he was this little guy, but he was superhuman. And so he sits down and he looks at everybody with this beautiful man smiling, and all of a sudden he goes, and he started laughing, this insane laughter that came out of the blue. And I was so amused, because I saw all these European people that had paid tons of money going like, oh my God, you know, what have I done? This guy is insane, you know. And it was a beautiful way to shatter all your images, conceptual images of what a spiritual teacher is. You know, he had this witchy, insane laughter that went on and on and on, and we were just stunned, you know. And then the teachings, I don't know if you've been exposed to the beautiful Tibetan Mahayana teachers, but they're so simple, you know, they're so simple. And the mind is there expecting esoteric visualizations and floating in the air, and it's not just like, live an aware life, open your heart, be full of compassion, be aware of the preciousness of life, and treat others kindly. Okay, done. You know, it's like, wait a minute, where are the esoteric visualizations? And they do come, you know. I mean, it gets very complex in terms of Tibetan Tantra. But, you know, I was never so attracted to that complexity, the tantric visualizations, hundreds of Buddhas, and
the deity yoga,
and then you bring all these beautiful offerings, and all that has to happen clearly in the mind. And it's amazing how it really concentrates the mind and kind of purifies the mind. But I was kind of in love with the Zen idea. Just shut up and sit and breathe in front of a white wall. And really take a good look at your mind, because it's easy to satisfy the mind with esoteric visualizations and teachings and thinking you're doing this amazing things and I am so evolved, you know. But shut up and sit and look at a white wall for 10 hours a day. Then you're going to find out about your mind, you know. So I kind of fell in love with the simplicity of it all, and then again, you know, as you mentioned, shattering your ideas of reality. You know, when my teacher said, "Zen, shut up and sit," that's it. Zen, only don't know. okay. And so you essentialize until you realize it's like all my ideas, and all my fantasies of supernatural powers, telepathy, floating in the air, seeing the light, enlightenment. It's all a bunch of stuff, just sit, breathe, be kind to other humans, and be present. And that's the greatest miracle. And that's all that there is to it. It's enough. The rest is all bubbles. And the bubbles are a lot of fun. There's nothing wrong with the bubbles, As long as you're grounded in the simplicity of it, then why not enjoy the bubbles? Enjoy the bubbles. But know that they're bubbles. I did encounter siddhis, supernatural powers in some people, in some sadhus in India.
Oh yeah, that is a really interesting story. Please share it. It's
you want
wonderful.
me to tell the story?
Yeah. Because the stories about cities are always interesting.
I arrived in Madras and this man with deep black eyes and his beautiful scarf on his head, and he says, "Do you want to see siddhis?" I knew what siddhis were, and of course I want to see siddhis.
Yeah, there are supernatural powers that humans can develop, basically.
They're yogic powers that you develop over many years of practice of yoga and meditation. So of course I wanted to see it. So he took me to this alley, shitty India alley, and sat me on these stairs and said, "Okay," and he asked me for this amount of money. That was the equivalent of a good dinner, so to speak, which was very precious to me. I had very little money, but of course I was going to risk it. So he said, "Do you have a pen and paper?" I go, "Yes." "Okay, break a little piece of paper, grab your pen, and make sure I don't see anything, and write your mother's name in the piece of paper." Okay. I wrote it down. It says, "Okay, now crumble this paper so it's impossible to read, and give it to me so I don't even see the paper." So I extend my fist there, and he makes a fist and opens and closes, and he meditates for literally seconds and tells me my mother's name, which is a word that no Indian has ever heard, right? And it blew my mind. What can I say? And then he says, "Okay, double the money for the next one." Okay, let's do this. So he says, "You have a coin?" "Yeah." "Okay, hold the coin in your fist. If you can hold the coin for a minute, I give you your money back. If not, you give me double the money." I go, like, "Hold the coin for a minute?" "Sure, man." He puts both his hands around, touching my fist, and so he's holding my fist between his two hands. And within seconds, the coin burns my hand. And I had years of yoga behind me too, right? I go like, no way. I couldn't hold on to the coin. It just was burning my hand. So I had to let go, and I look at my hand and there's no sign of burn whatsoever. So I was very grateful. It was money well spent, But the thought inevitably came that this man had spent years and years to develop the siddhis. What for? To take this little guy in an alley and get a dinner out of it, And it's like... And he was obviously a person of power who was using this power in this weird way. So in sharing this experience with other travelers and other quote-unquote seekers, I realized that there were many of these guys stealing money, raping women, taking money away from travelers. And it gave me a very different perspective on siddhis, which my teachers later, particularly my Zen teachers later, confirmed. It's very easy to develop these powers, and then your ego takes a hold of these powers, and then you abuse these powers. And so what? So what if you can make my hand burn? So what? Does that make you a better human being? It's not what it's about. And so I totally gave up on this lofty ideas of yogic powers. Like, no, just be a kind human being. Take the next breath. Enjoy your next meal. Be present in what you do. And that is the magic. Because, man, That is magic. 99% of humanity doesn't show up for their life. We're always walking ahead of yourself. We're always in survival mode and fear mode. And society feeds this, right? Because that's the way they make us into nice consumers. The more fear we have, the more we consume, and the more we obey. And so this is a rebellious path, of self-independence and of self-reliance. And nobody's going to hypnotize you into buy things you don't need with money that you don't have, because it's simple. You can live simply and joyfully with very, very little, and be an enjoyer of life rather than a survivor of life. The enemy of life is not death. Death is the lover of life. The enemy of life is survival. Because when you're surviving, you're not living. Simple as that. So those are some stories of shocking moments in teachings that there are great gifts.
Thank you so much for sharing those stories. And I really appreciate this concept of simplicity that you just introduced, because I myself fell prey to this tendency that I had when it came to my meditation practice. I wanted to achieve that transcendental state.
Yeah, we do.
And when I started to actually, because you asked me like if I'm familiar with Tibetan Buddhism, I've been going deeper and deeper into the practice of Vajrayana Buddhism, which are the Tibetan traditions, basically. And the more I'm going, what I really appreciate about this teaching is that they guide us so nicely and so wisely in observing the tendencies that we have and just being with those tendencies. So now whenever I'm practicing, whenever I feel this, like, I want to reach a transcendental state, it's kind of like a clinging. And I'm slowly starting to work with that clinging, just to like be present and just be aware of that clinging. And it's so interesting because like I was never taught this when I began with my meditation journey. And now I'm slowly starting to observe the mechanisms of my mind and how my mind seduces me, right? Mm-hmm. Leads me into all these expectations or aversions.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm just having a boring meditation. Wow, that's great. Just observe it. Like, it's so simple. And it's so difficult to actually transfer this into words, because somebody was just like, it's so simple. But when you actually sit in meditation and just develop this genuine interest in how your mind works, it's so amazingly beautiful. Yeah, it's been an incredible path. So yeah, definitely I connect to this simplicity that you speak of, because I know for myself that, yeah, I've been wanting to get to these specific states. And now the more I meditate, the more I witness this everyday waking state as quite a transcendental state. It's so insane, like, when you actually start connecting to it, right?
Exactly. It's a miracle. Every breath we take is a miracle of the universe. The entire universe has conspired to make our next breath possible. In the finest chemical reactions in the atmosphere and the perfect temperature that we are messing with, unfortunately. And so it's important what you're saying in terms of, in my life at least, the importance of meditation. I wouldn't be who I am without hours and hours and hours, maybe even years of meditation. So I do recommend that for just about everybody. And now there's studies that are saying, well, maybe meditation is not for everybody, blah, blah, blah. Or, well, maybe, I don't know. I have never met someone that did not benefit from meditation. And in my path, I don't know, without meditation, I'd be someone else. I don't know. All the real realizations in my life have come, if not directly through the path of meditation, but through the states of mind that I became familiar with in meditation, and the spaces that opened up inside of me through the practice of meditation. Yeah, I recommend that.
So about 2 days ago, I was at a workshop that you held about Tantra. And at one point, an interesting question came from the audience by one man. And
I know where you're going.
and I so deeply appreciated your answer. So I'm definitely going to use this opportunity to ask you the same question, because I think most of the audience could actually relate to it. And the question goes, why do we have this experience as human beings? What is the meaning of this experience?
What is the meaning of this experience? Yeah. And my humorous and standard answer is, have you had good sex?
Yes.
Most people say yes. And so I asked the question, did you stop in the middle of sex and ask, what is the meaning of this? Probably nobody has done that, because you are there for it, right? And so when you are there equally in the process of living, that question does not arise. Life is its own answer. The miracle of taking the next breath is the only answer that we need about what the meaning of life is. The meaning of life is to be alive, to live every moment. You don't need any other meaning. Everything else is just conceptualizing, and dangerous conceptualizing, because, yeah, I want to be the best musician in the world. Okay, great. But that's the game. I'm playing that game, and I'm playing that game very seriously, as you know. But hey, tomorrow I fall from my bicycle and I break my hand and I cannot play music anymore. What happens to Pepe then? Because I am so identified with the game of being a musician. A lot of people kill themselves, like literally, right? If they cannot do what they think they're here to do. But that's not it. That's just a game, you know? And okay, if I cannot play music anymore, there's so many other things that I can do. And if I don't do anything, I can always just sit and breathe and look at the tree. It's fine with me, you know, because I'm not identified. I identify with any outer activity. But these outer activities are beautiful games that we play, and they're necessary because we're here to do that. We're here to play the game. But that's where the Buddhist idea of unattachment and the fundamental idea of
impermanence.
Impermanence. Thank you very much. Of impermanence is when we internalize and beingness. Our beingness has imbibed and digested these truths. Then everything else is a beautiful game. Important in that sense that this is what we came to do. I came here to transmit through sound, through music, and I take it very seriously, and I study and I practice and I try to perfect this. But like I say, it could end tomorrow, and I still have to deal with. I'm carrying this 3D thing that I call my body, and life goes on. So Castaneda's books have been important in my life, you know, and Castaneda has this beautiful concept that has been a guide in my life. What does he call it? He's got a beautiful name that I don't have in my brain right now. Conscious folly, I think he called it. Conscious folly. Folly being stupidity. Conscious folly. And how does that translate, and how that has been important in my life? Two poles, two different hands. On this one hand, this is what I'm doing. I'm going to do it right. I'm going to be serious about it. I'm going to develop it, and I'm going to be the best I can be at this thing that I am doing. The other hand, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I don't know what reality is. I cannot say that anything is anything because everything is a great mystery. I don't know shit. And these poles always in balance with each other. the I don't know pole, and then this is what I'm doing, and I'm going to do it right pole. And always keeping these two things, because when they go out of balance, if the I don't know goes totally out of balance, then you cannot do anything on this 3D reality. We're here to live it, right? Mm-hmm. And if the other pole goes up and yes, I am the greatest musician in the world and I practice 8 hours a day, then the ego gets completely out of control, right? Mm-hmm. And so this is a beautiful balance. That's what it calls him, controlled folly. Mm-hmm. That's what Castaneda called it in the book. It's been a guiding light in my life, controlled folly. I do this, I do it right. I have no idea what I'm doing. It's beautiful. It's a joke. It's a cosmic joke, but it is reality. Both ends are very real. We have to be active and we have to provide goodness on this 3D reality, and at the same time we have to be aware that it's a great mystery. And if we identify with me, I am doing this, in Taoism that's called Wu Wei, and Wu Wei means like the disappearance of the me doing this action on this object and brinking benefit to the world. And that disappears. Your beingness just acts naturally out of beingness and creates change in the world in a very natural way, and there's no me doing this thing and taking credit for it. It just gets done because it's necessary, and that's who you are, and you keep this balance of beautiful discipline and beautiful commitment, and at the same time this I don't know-ness, this embracing the mystery of it all.
Yeah, and hearing you speak about it, it's almost like you stop being in the role of, stop being in the role of Damien doing something, and it's more like watching the movie of Damien unfold.
Right. With a smile.
With a smile. Like, wow, look at this.
Yeah. Absolutely. And eventually what you do becomes so naturally that you're not even there, Like literally when I'm on stage, Pepe's not there at all. You could stab me. I wouldn't know that you stabbed me until the end of the concert. It's like, whoa, what's this blood? This literally, I have bled on my drums quite often. It's like, oh, what happened there? I have no idea, because I'm not there as Pepe, the ego, when I'm playing music. It's just like, it's so deeply ingrained and natural to me that it's just like, same with the Stas. I'm sure you experience the same thing with him,
exactly the same thing. It's always such a great joy to see you both perform together.
It's like, so much fun. So much fun. And it's, it is on a cellular level, there's a renewal that happens when you are in this beautiful natural flow. And I think that's part of what keeps me very, very young and very healthy, even at my age. You should see my friends. They all look like my old uncle. It's like, what are you doing?
If they're alive.
Yes, true. All my heroes are disappearing very fast. So
in your talks and lectures, you frequently mention the Buddhist teachings because you yourself have been deeply involved into many different forms of Buddhism. And those teachings, like as you mentioned, among many things, in a way remind us of this concept of impermanence, and in a way that everything that we perceive through our senses and all the models that we have of reality is kind of like an illusion. Yet at the same time, you're so deeply involved in the music, like into so many things that fill up your senses. You have a wonderful relationship with your partner, Julia. You travel all around the world. You have many wonderful experiences in this physical universe. So I wanted to ask you to if you could expand a bit more on that subtle balance that you find between the Buddhist teachings that teach us about this, in a way, illusionary aspect of this reality, and everyday things in our lives that seem to be so real, like getting old, making a living, or facing many different challenges that we encounter in this physical reality. Can you expand a bit more on how actually you find that balance between these two?
The balance I found between the practice of Buddhism and the practice of Tantra. And of course, with a little sprinkle of Taoism, and that was a little conceptual trouble that I had with Buddhism. You know, that even in the highest end of the Buddhist teachings, the goal, there was a goal, and the goal was to kind of escape Maya, to escape the illusion of this reality. And this whole idea of escaping never quite stood well with me. So when I met Tantra, that was so refreshing. It's like, listen, it's all one. There's no one there to escape anywhere. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's one thing.
Who escapes what?
Exactly. And who goes where? You know? And I love that. And I experienced that. You know, it's like, no, there's no one there to go anywhere else. There, you know. This is it, my friend. This is the whole deal. Wherever you are, that's where you are. There's nowhere else to go. There's nowhere to escape, you know. And so that was refreshing, this tantric view, the completely non-dual view.
Could you also give just a brief explanation on what Tantra actually is? Because I think it's so valuable, especially for you, to maybe give this slight explanation, because I think that so many people attach this sexual aspect to Tantra, and like most people think that Tantra is just about sex. So just now, as you speak about this, could you also just kind of give a brief explanation on to what Tantra actually is?
Yeah, Tantra embraces the entire experience of being in this reality. And therefore, it also embraces sexuality, you know. But we in the West are so obsessed with it that we just took that little thing and we talk about tantric sex. There's no such thing. There's no such thing. There's tantric peeling the potato. Mm-hmm. There is tantric sex. There's tantric walking to the supermarket. You either live in a sacred way or you don't. If you live in a sacred way, yes, your sexuality becomes sacred, as well as cooking the soup, you know, as well as sitting at your altar, as well as having coffee in the coffee shop. You living in a sacred way. You have imbibed this oneness with the world as an act of faith or as an actual experience, because the act of faith will hopefully eventually lead you to the experience, and there's no coming back from that experience. When you've experienced this sense of oneness, there's just no coming back. This idea of separation becomes a reality, a 3D reality that needs respect. And that's what the ego is about. The ego is the administrator of our illusion of separateness, right? And it's very important. We need to say the words, I need to eat. That's the ego speaking. That's why when teacher says, I have no ego, it's like, wait a minute, did you start the sentence with the word I? You cannot say I if you don't have any ego, you know, and it's fundamental. It's part of the deal. And Tantra embraces the whole thing. So that's where I had certain problems with the Buddhist idea of maybe sometimes demonizing the ego, the idea of escaping Maya. I'm having a great time in Maya, man. I'm willing to come back quite a few more times to play this game, you know? I don't feel the need to escape it at all. In fact, I think it's a beautiful game. And from a tantric perspective, this thing called Shiva is simply the great consciousness that embraces all, and it has a creative urge, which is natural to any form of consciousness. It has a creative urge. And so it has created this beautiful movie. And it has created this thing that I call Pepe, and this the embodiment of this teeny weeny spark of the great fire of creativity and creation. And I'm here to experience this Pepe-ness fully and to bring this Pepe-ness back to the source with some great stories, you know, with some great stories. And that's the essence of Tantra, is the sense of complete non-dual oneness of everything, the idea that this oneness is a form of consciousness, which now through quantum physics we're pretty much confirming, and the fact that this sense of separation is a momentary game. It's like sometimes I give the example, think of my pinky finger. Is this Pepe? Mm-hmm. If you say yes, you're right. Mm-hmm. If you say no, you're right.
Yeah, cut it off, and you're still
exactly
Pepe.
Cut it off, and but step on it, and Pepe suffers, right? So yes, it's Pepe, and it's not Pepe. We have the same relationship to the universe. We are it, and we are not it. We are part of it, complete part of it, and yet we have this sense of separateness. And what happens if the pinky finger decides that I am the pinky and I don't need to do anything that Pepe tells me to do? Then Pepe has a real trouble, right? Because this pinky stays like that and it doesn't do anything. And we have that relationship quite often with the universe. I am Pepe, I am a separate thing. And therefore I become literally what a cell in our body comes when it stops cooperating. We become a cancer. We become a cancer in this beautiful one body of the universe. And that's the essence of Tantra. That's the essence of Tantra. Our almost duty to return ourselves back into the awareness of this oneness and being vehicles for this oneness in this world. And so, yes, there is tantric sex, but it's not what it's all about. In fact, if you look at the tantric scriptures, maybe there's a 5% mention of sex, and it's a very high form of sex as meditation to really experience the potential of the incredible oneness that comes when you're in a state of deep oneness and meditation, and you meet another being who's in a state of oneness and meditation, and you unite together. It's an atomic bomb that happens. And so Tantra knows that. But there's years and years and years of preparation before any guru will take you into sexual practices. It's actually has very little to do with what we conceive as sex. It's a very high form of meditation, and it's so beautiful. And this can only be achieved the way I see it, with a long-term relationship between two people that really have very deep love for each other and a great commitment to go deeper and deeper into the evolution of us as consciousness and the closeness to the oneness. And then you bring these two beings together. It's pure poetry. It's pure beauty,
So you said, in a way, Tantra help you to find balance between this Buddhist aspect of teachings. Through Tantra, you somehow...
Because the Buddhist teachings are priceless. They're absolutely beautiful. The Four Noble Truths, the priceless. But the Buddha inserted some religion there because we are stupid, And so he inserted many layers of Buddhism. So any kind of consciousness, if you're the kind of person who is like a Sunday church, he created that, he created the religion of Buddhism for those who, all they need is a religion and being told what to do, fine. And he created meditation for those who are deeply committed to go within. And he created Tantra for those who really have the commitment to go into a path that requires a lot of discipline and commitment. And so you have all these layers of Buddhism that are so impeccable teachings. And so it's still very much my foundation. Mm-hmm. But Tantra brought this playfulness and this joy and this gratitude and this great acceptance of things as they are, and the idea that there's nowhere to escape. There's nothing, there's no one here to go anywhere. And so that is beautifully settling when you... I love the word realization, right? Real. And enlightenment, no idea what it is. Mm-hmm. But real when the teachings become part of your beingness, a natural part of who you are and how you function in the world and the frequency that you're broadcasting in the world, you know?
There was this one aspect of my question that perhaps maybe I should clarify a bit more. How did you find the balance of staying connected with all these teachings, but at the same time having to make a living? Just like needing to show up every day, trying to make a living, trying to make some money.
I think I answered, there's no separation.
Mm.
You live in a sacred way or you don't. If you live in a sacred way, whatever you're doing, all the way from being, you know, the cashier in the supermarket, is a sacred duty. Mm. Not only a sacred duty, it makes a difference. You know, sometimes I've been shown gratitude for sitting in a coffee shop, you know, and the waiter comes and says, "Thank you for being here. I don't know, you made my day so much better." It's like, what? But it's why? Because I'm there in a peaceful way, enjoying the coffee and acknowledging the human being and in true gratitude for the service that the human being is providing, and acknowledging our connection and our oneness. And that's profoundly it's a connectivity that has the essence of love in there, you know. I had a very funny one, exactly that thing, because Julia, my beloved's father, came to meet me once. And we decided to meet where? In some city in the world. Anyway, it doesn't matter. In a restaurant. And this thing happened. All of a sudden, the waiter comes and says, "Who are you and what do you do? I mean, there's something so special and it's so nice to have you here." And Julia's father look at me like, "What the hell is happening here?" You know? So waiter giving gratitude, he couldn't understand what was going on. But we do bring the sense of easiness, the sense of love, the sense of connectivity to everything we do, and it's healing, you know. It's healing even for your waiter. So whatever you do, you're the cashier in supermarket, you can actually broadcast this and make that a sacred duty, you know, to expand love. Whether you're a banker or a garbage man or an employee of anything or whatever it is you do, if you have this sense of oneness and the sacredness of life, you're going to bring it into what you do, you know. So there's no separation, because your question basically brings a sense of what I do in life is separate from, no, it isn't. Who you are is what you're going to be, and this is what you're going to broadcast, whether you're sitting in front of the altar or you're doing your job, wherever that is. There's no separation.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Thank you for the question. It's very important.
My next question is in a way related to the topic of acceptance that we already spoke of. And that topic is about suffering. Even Buddha himself taught to his disciples that there is suffering. And that was actually the first of his Four Noble Truths that he left to his students. But at the same time, like, each and every one of us have totally different ways in which we relate and in which we react to suffering. So I would like for you to share a bit more as to how do you personally relate to suffering and how do you handle it in your own life?
Well, to begin with, the word in Pali that the Buddha used is dukkha. And dukkha is mistranslated as suffering. Right? So the first noble truth is that because of our attachment, we find ourselves in a state of constant dissatisfaction, basically. That's a little more accurate. It's a state, the mind is in a state of constant dissatisfaction. When we want something, then we suffer for that desire, and if we get it, we may suffer because we want more or we are afraid to lose it. The mind always finds a way of complicating things. We don't want something, then we're in a state of rejection, or we close ourselves. I don't care about that, blah, blah, blah. Mind is in a constant state of dissatisfaction. It's the nature of the mind. The suffering comes from how we react to something that is inevitable in life, which is pain, right? The pain is the basic truth of what we experience in certain life situations. The suffering is what we do with that pain. What I do with that pain and that suffering, which is inevitable, that the mind will grasp at it and make it into a story, and the story will be even more painful than the actual fact, is to sit with it. To sit with it and let it brew inside. And that's where the ability to meditate comes in. Instead of going into the ice cream or going into the vodka or going into the iPhone or going into the Netflix, shut up and sit and fully, because the pain is a gift. The pain is a gift. It opens up our heart. It gives us an experience. It increases our empathy for other people's pain. And it's inevitable. It's going to come. If we resist it, if we run away from it, it doesn't get the chance to do the work that it comes to do within our heart center. And so allow that pain, allow that suffering to be exactly what it is, and stop and fully experience it. It could be overwhelming, you know, but if you can handle it and you can let it be, it will alchemize. It's a form of alchemy, suffering and pain. And you come out of it a different person, more open-hearted, more empathic with the pain of others. And you come out of it. That's the thing, you know, because at the moment it may seem that I will never come out of this. I just can't get over it, and I'm going to jump from a bridge. But if you jump from the bridge, you really won't come out of it. You're not actually escaping it, you know. You're escaping your body, but this experience, you're not escaping it at all. Sit with it, let it be, even cultivate it, you know, let it flower inside of you, because ultimately it's love. Ultimately it's love. When my daughter died, the pain, the essence of that pain is my love for her. So if I let that suffering brew and brew and brew, the alchemy of it, the essence of it, the philosopher's stone is love, you know. And the pain is beautiful because I have loved. And so you find the beauty in the pain, you find the beauty in the suffering, the poetry of being a vulnerable human being, and the poetry of loving and losing what you love. Very, very painful. The danger is to make an identity out of that pain. And when you make an identity, I have suffered, I have gone through this, I am a victim of that, and you make an identity out of that pain, then you're stuck. And that pain gets stuck in your body. Every good massage therapist knows how we get stuck trauma in our body, because we hold on to that pain and we make it about who we are and not how this creature experienced this thing, because we escaped it, we didn't allow it, we were afraid of it, we thought we couldn't handle it, and then we carry it for the rest of our lives. So the way I deal with suffering is by suffering, if that makes any sense. You know, I don't escape it in any way. And I notice, you know, there's so many escapes that we have, like I say, from entertainment to drugs to sex to alcohol to food. Observe that and don't. Sit with it. Let it be. The essence of it is always going to be love. No matter what. you know. Just describe any suffering and I can show you how the essence of it is going to be love. Because that's really what brings on the pain, is the fact that we have loved and we have lost. Loved and lost. But that's where the teachings of impermanence come in, right? We have a previous realization of this and a previous acceptance of this, and so it doesn't catch us by surprise anymore, and it doesn't shock us that deeply anymore. It's like, oh yeah, I recognize this. Okay, welcome. Okay, I'm going to sit with it. I'm going to breathe into it. I'm going to see where in my body I'm holding this, and I'm going to release it through breath. And I'm going to go to the essence of it, which is the fact that I have loved, you know. And it's painful, yeah, but in a beautiful way. Yeah.
What would you say to somebody who is currently following us and listening to what we're speaking about, but who feels somewhat estranged and endangered in this life and simply does not know how to open and surrender to life?
Survival is overrated. You know, and if you're in survival mode, you are cutting off your ability to love and to live. The fears are very real. It's a dangerous world out there, you know. But what is the option? The option is to live in fear and live in all surrounded by your defenses. There's this beautiful story of the gardener. It's a long story, but to make a long story short, you know, he has this beautiful garden that he loves and he takes care of, and a storm comes and destroys the garden. So, and then animals come, and so he starts building walls and walls and walls until he completely covers and protects the garden, and the garden dies. Because it receives no more sun and no more shit from the animals and no more rain. And so this is the balance that we have to keep. The storms and the shit of the animals and the rains are just as important as the sunshine and the beautiful summer and spring and the blue sky. It's all part of that deal. And if we're going to protect our garden, we're going to miss half the deal, and our garden dies, and we become lifeless, you know. And I have never liked that option. I just don't like that option. So take the risk. Love fully, you're going to suffer. You're going to be in pain. Live fully, you're going to encounter serious shit in your life that's going to hurt a lot. What's the alternative? Protect yourself from life, protect yourself from pain. Good luck. Good luck. You're living in the darkness of this protected little cage that you build around yourself. Not worth it. Not worth it. What is Neil Young's songs? Better to burn out than to fade away. Go ahead, burn out, man. Burn out like a bright flame. Fading away, not so good. in the protection of your fear. Not worth it, just not worth it. And you have to realize at a certain point, it's just not life. That's not life. Risk it all and go ahead and lose, you know. My father wasn't a spiritual man in the least. In fact, he was a gambler and a womanizer. But out of that, he made an incredible philosophy of life. And he used to tell me, you know, you're playing poker, the cards don't matter. It's how you play those cards. That's a philosophy of life.
It is.
The cards you get don't matter, man. How you're going to play those cards is what matters. You can still win the game with bad cards. You can still win the game. So play the game. Play the game fully. And if you're going to lose it all. It's just not worth living in fear. Just not worth living in fear, you know. But on the other hand, you have to respect people that have been hurt, people that have been traumatized as children, you know. how do you deal with that? You have to empathize with that. But hopefully, eventually they find the people that can help them, and they realize they seek and they need help, and they can open up to the beauty of taking the risk of being alive, Nothing else is really worth. Living in fear is a cage. But who, I think it was Hafiz that said that the bird that was born in a cage thinks that all the birds flying around are all wrong and crazy. So yeah, if you were born in a cage of trauma, it's hard to get out of there, But hopefully there's enough help out there. And that's where our you-oneness comes, and that's where our ability to do what we do correctly and beautifully and lovingly comes in. Maybe I can play a piece of music and get you out of the space. Maybe a psychotherapist that comes from a place of love can help you out of that. We all have our abilities, and we all pool our abilities to become a healing force in life, and then we can all raise together. And that's where Mahayana is beautiful, right? Mm-hmm. I'm not going anywhere until I help all my brothers and sisters to raise with me. That's a beautiful attitude, And I took the Bodhisattva vows, and I take them seriously.
Mm-hmm. Pepe, thank you for everything.
Pleasure, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you for everything that you are, and for everything that you live, and that you share with all of us. I would like to conclude this word ceremony by just asking you, if, for all that are currently following us, if someone wants to begin a spiritual journey but doesn't know where nor how to start, what would you tell them?
I started with books. As long as you know that this is just concepts, certain books can be very, very inspiring. And so reading is a beautiful thing. And now the danger is that there's so much information and misinformation out there. So a spiritual friend is always a wonderful thing to have. Someone that's maybe older and has gone through some kind of journey and can guide you. So spiritual friends are precious, are very precious. Certain books can literally change your life. I have that experience. You have that experience. But Gurđijev has this very beautiful concept that has also been kind of a guide in my life, that he calls the magnetic center, And the magnetic center means that you cultivate the question. Don't seek the answers, but cultivate the question. Cultivate the love of the mystery, and cultivate your beingness and your inner silence. And then you start creating this magnetic center that will attract the right thing at the right time, It's that's how synchronicity, that's how magic happens. So keep it simple. Take one practice from a yoga book, take one practice from a Buddhist book, and actually practice it. Mm-hmm. Sit down and meditate. If you have no guidance whatsoever, just sit down and find your quietness, And this slowly creates this magnetic center that will create magic in your life. If your thirst is sincere, you will attract the right thing at the right time. Just have that faith. Have that faith, and be always open to attract that. Be always aware. Keep your attention alive, and life will send you messages. Life will send you messages. You're in a bookstore and this book all of a sudden falls off the shelf. That has happened to me. Okay, you better pick up that book, man, But you can miss it. Miss it. Maybe the book fell and you were thinking about your bank account and you kept on going. You missed that opportunity, Maybe you're in a coffee shop and you feel this connection with this person and you don't pursue it. And you miss that chance. Maybe that person could have made the whole life. So keep your tentacles out there, and keep that faith in the mystery and faith in life, and cultivate your love for the mystery and your love for this question. Because the question won't be answered, but the deeply it comes from you, the more it attracts. The more it attracts signs and symbols,
Speaking about wonderful messages and signs, we have prepared a wonderful surprise for all of you that have stayed with us until the end of this amazing journey. At least it was really amazing for me. Pepe is going to play for us shakuhachi, the instrument that he mentioned at the beginning of this episode. So enjoy.
Okay, let's see how she feels today.
Oh, it's a she.
Yes. Some of them are he, some of them are she. They'll let you know. This is very old treasure. I've had it for 30 years or more. And I'll share with you a classical piece. Classical meaning part of the Zen shakuhachi repertoire that probably comes from some monk somewhere. And it's one of the few that I have totally memorized because it's a short piece and it's kind of like a preparation for deeper meditation. Some pieces are up to 20 minutes. And this is kind of a meditation warm-up, so to speak.
What an end.
What a pleasure to be here with you. Thank you.
Or maybe even better, what a beginning.
Inshallah.
Thank you, Pepe. Thank you for everything. Thank you all for watching and for staying with us until the end of this wonderful journey.
Indeed.
I hope that you have enjoyed it as much as I have in making it. I'm going to share all the links and even some of the books that we mentioned in the description below this video, so you'll be able to see, to search deeper and to also connect with Pepe to find out more about his work. Thank you, and I'll be seeing you in some of our new cosmic adventures soon. Ciao.